Greetings, friends, and welcome to the woods. Since we still have stormy weather and dark days and lots of chaos around us, I'm going to continue on a little bit further in the discussion of the dark side. In particular, I want to talk about how people get lured in to make that choice. And I say it that way, but perhaps I shouldn't. I think there are those who are fated to become dedicated to the way of life that is all about power and the accumulation of power, primarily. That has its place. Now, on this planet, it's become very unbalanced for a very long time, something that needs to be corrected. But within the scope of things, we need to have that side. Without the chaos, without the aggression, without the ability to push against the harmonious unity of all, we will not have change or transformation. We won't have excitement. We won't have adventure. We won't have the springboard for creativity, because out of chaos comes the creative. If you want to have free will, you have to have a certain amount of duality. If everyone is in agreement all of the time, you're captured in that force of unity. You're not going to have diversity. Think about it. We need the dark side in order to have freedom. But paradoxically, if it becomes unbalanced, if it becomes the tyrant, then we lose our freedom. The Native Americans, I should be specific, the Lakota see the concept of peace as a constant adjustment, that we're constantly working to harmonize the forces in our lives to maintain the balance, to maintain harmonious and interactive, sustaining life. And what's happened to disrupt the peace on this planet is we've had an extreme unbalance that has carried forward and carried forward and carried forward. And that has to change. But that's not to say that a certain amount of the disruptor, a certain amount of the power over, doesn't need to exist in order to push things forward and to create a little bit of chaos, to allow new things to come in, to allow the diversity that we need. So yes, evil exists for a reason. And the concept of evil is, there are levels. There are levels. So I have to be careful with my words here, and I'm not being very careful. I apologize for that. But let's talk about what lures people into choosing that path and sometimes getting lost in it. And the reasons are myriad. Most often it is to protect your family, to protect someone you love, to get yourself out of a situation where naturally there is no way to prevail. So you reach out for the one thing that will change the direction that things are going, because there doesn't seem to be any other options. That can push people into that stream. They might start off with it being very innocent, that they just want to solve this one particular problem. But once they make that choice, it becomes easier and easier to continue along that path. So if you find that you have to dip into the primal side, the dark side, you want to make sure that you balance that out directly after. It's what's called the middle path. And as humans, it's a natural and comfortable way to exist within that middle. Sometimes harsh things have to be done, but they need to be balanced, and in the case of some of us, overbalanced with things that are life affirming. So, protecting others, getting out of a very bad situation, paradoxically, preserving life. But usually, when you're dipping into that side to preserve life, the solution of that side is to take the life of others. So you're preserving the life of you and your family, providing for you and your family, but you're taking the life of others, often many others. That's that competition thing that is so prevalent within that paradigm. But you can see it would be very easy to walk into the dark in that case. Another way that people get lured in is to protect others who are being tempted into that venue, to take their place, to essentially push them to one side, because you know that those folks cannot handle the dark without getting lost in it. And the hopes is that you can. So you step in front of the bullet because you know that you can survive, that you're strong enough to be harsh, to be frightening, to be dark. You take that on. Again, in the hopes that you'll be able to balance the scale once you're done. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes darkness wins. And that's, again, how people get lost. You get deeper and deeper and deeper, and the more you invest in it, it's kind of the case for either side. The more you're vested, the more you can justify taking on a more extreme role. And sometimes pushing that person aside who you think can't handle it and taking their place is an excuse for doing what you really want to do and think you're really good at. Again, you have to be careful. Now, I have known people, and it's the people with the highest integrity who can handle working the darker end of things. I've seen it. It's possible. There are people who can do that. But it takes a high level of integrity. And if you're going to do that, you're going to take on tremendous sacrifice, because the amount of discipline and, again, integrity with source that's required to work the darker end of the spectrum is it takes the athlete of the spiritual. You have to be very strong in yourself, and you have to be very devoted to source. And the amount of darkness that you dip into, you have to be careful about that, because a little tiny bit goes a very long way. And if you don't act with discipline, it creates chaos. And the problem that you're trying to fix by utilizing it will spiral and get greater and greater and greater until you have to call in something to help you with it. And usually what will help you with darkness is more darkness. So now you've committed yourself even stronger to that path. So as you can see, it's seductive. It can take over. Another way that people can get, good people, can get lost in the dark is when they're very idealistic and their heart's broken. Something happens that makes them so angry and so hurt that they break. A broken idealist, a broken romantic, can harvest, can handle a whole lot of dark. And sometimes, without even realizing, that's what they're doing. We have to be wise when we deal with people who strayed into the dark. We can't tolerate behavior that harms the innocent. But we have to be very careful about being too judgmental about people who harm themselves, who appear to have made poor life choices, who've gotten lost in the dark in ways that are out of circumstance rather than coming from their character. You have to look at why they make the choices that they make, or why they made the choices that they made. Because some of these folks can be pulled back, and some of us are put in a position to do that. And it's a good thing to do. But do be careful, because if they're not reaching out for help, and sometimes even when they are, you're going to run into a lot of trouble, and you're going to endanger yourself and everyone around you by sticking your nose or sticking your hand into the abyss. Something to think about, and welcome to the woods.